All right. Good morning. How you all doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to another episode of the Forex Daily Analysis. This beautiful second day of April 2025. Hope you're well from wherever it is that you're joining us from. Karibuni sana. If you're new here, we do this each and every morning, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. in the morning. So feel free to join us. Also, remember to like and subscribe. At least if you do that and also turn on the bell notification, then at least you will be notified anytime we do go live. But karibuni sana. So for the sake of guys who are also new here, John Bogo is my name. My trader is Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So we do have the rest of the team here. You may not see them here, but they're in the back office. In case you do have any questions, any requests, any comments, feel free to send them into the chat box. The team will be there. Also, feel free to interact with us, but I will also be looking at the questions or whatever will be in the chat box towards the very tail end of this session. But you don't really need to wait until then. You still can interact with us even as the session does continue moving along. And of course, for the guys who are going to be watching this later on, feel free to also leave in a comment in the comment section. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list. So you can see the watch list right there for today. Massive change from what we had yesterday. You can see quite a number of things have joined the buy side of things. So we only will be looking at the US dollar and the euro, which will be on the sell side versus everything else on the buy side. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 areas I had pointed out and also some illustration of what to expect. Unfortunately, our expectations were not quite met because we wanted to see the buyers show up within this region before we look for buys. Unfortunately, that didn't happen there. And of course, when price came back in within this region, also unfortunately, there wasn't really anything to tell us to look for any buying opportunities. And of course, once the market broke to the downside, then unfortunately, there's definitely no trade for us on that one. So the next one, the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Selling opportunities. So you can see the 3 areas that I had pointed out. So yesterday morning at around 9, price was somewhere within this region right here. And I pointed out that maybe we could get some selling opportunities off this area. You can see that at 10, during the London market open, price did actually start to move to the downside, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get price coming back all the way till within this region here. And you can see that the buyers within this area actually gave the sellers quite a bit of a headache. And unfortunately, when price came back in within there was no sign of any sellers. And of course, when price came back all the way till within that region, earlier today, unfortunately, and broke to the upside. Also not a currency pair that we will be looking out for today. But there was something up with the NZDs and the AUDs yesterday, showing a lot of strength. So give a couple of issues on quite a number of them. So you will see that even as we continue moving down the list, as well as some Canadian dollar pairs as well. So the next one, the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the 3 areas I had pointed out, also an illustration of what potentially to expect. So price was here. We're expecting the pullback to come back in within there. Price did not pull back there. There was some sort of an SNR within this region right here that you can see that the market gave a reaction, came down, expecting the market to break to the downside and hold. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But generally, you can see the buyers within this region actually pushed the market to the upside, from during the US session. And you can see that the market is still continuing to rally to the upside. So unfortunately, no trade yesterday, and also moving into today, not really a currency pair we will be watching out for. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Similar situation to the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So you can see in the morning price was here. I pointed out it wasn't a good area in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, but just holding within or beneath a seller's region. Wanted to see the market break to the upside. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market pulled back in. And unfortunately, within this region, we just couldn't get the buyers to really show up. At one point in time, it seemed like they had really showed up. And I was actually timing this trade within here. But when I saw the market come down aggressively, I didn't jump in on the buy, which was a good idea. And you can see that the price did come down quite aggressively, came down, reached that region to the downside, and technically seems to be holding beneath it. So moving into today, not really a currency pair we'll be watching out for. The next one is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three areas I had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, price was within a buyer's region. Wasn't a good time to look for the selling opportunities. And at least you can see that by not looking for the sells down within here, you saved yourself some money. So you can see that down here, the buyers reacted, especially during the US session. The Canadian dollar pairs really spiked a lot, either to the upside or to the downside, but generally for strength. So that's the reason why we've also shifted it to the buy side moving into today. So unfortunately, there wasn't any clear opportunity on the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc yesterday. So moving on into the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. Price was here. Wanted to see the market break to the downside of this region right here, then potentially hold before we look for sells. Unfortunately, the market did break, but unfortunately just really struggled to hold. So you can see that there was a massive probe within this region, definitely a region where we do have buyers. So this one, there was a bit of caution. Price came back in within here, but you can see that the sellers just couldn't push the market all the way down to within this region. So the market also on that one, the buyers, or rather the sellers, really struggled. So unfortunately, there wasn't much of a trading opportunity for us. So moving on into the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. So you can see the three areas. So in the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the pullback. The pullback came in, definitely back within some sort of a buyer's region, but the buyers were nowhere to be seen. Price came down lower. The next set of buyers were down within here. You can see that they attempted to come up, but unfortunately, you can see that the market really struggled. So something to do with the NZDs. And of course, when the market broke to the downside, unfortunately, there was no trade for us. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Can't see the three areas and what the game plan was. Also, this one in the morning, price was within some sort of a buyer's region. And wanted to see the breach to the downside. I pointed out that you shouldn't look for selling opportunities within there. The buyers could have reacted, and they did. You can see that price came back in within this region here. Unfortunately, there was no sign of the big sellers within that particular region, and you can see that the market has continued to move up higher. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, not really a currency pair that's going to be on our watch list for today. So last but not least, for review, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. And you can see the three areas I had pointed out. And it seems like quite a number of these currency pairs were actually down within regions of buyers, because you can see that even this one, similar situation, price was somewhere down here. Wanted to see the breach to the downside before we look for the sells, but unfortunately the market bounced off this region to the upside, and you can see that it's continued to rally up higher. So also for this one, unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we're going to be trying to see whether we can trade today. So moving on into some screenshots that we did get from you guys. So we'll start off with this one from Alvin. So this is on the Great British Pound against the US dollar. Good to see that you got a very, very good selling opportunity on this one. Though the market spiked up quite high, but at least I think your stop loss was well hidden, high above, maybe some sellers who are high up within there. So you did survive that. And I can see that when the market came down, definitely closed your trade down within this region where we do have some buyers, which is okay. So shout out to you for that, Alvin. And I think proper stop loss placement is what really saved you on that one. But good to see that you came out with some profits on it. So the next one, this is from Peter. So I see that you got the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. Good to see that you got the sells high up within this region right here somehow. Maybe when the market went up as it was coming down, you got the sell there. I can see that your stop loss is hidden just above, these sellers who are pushing down, which is really good. And I mean, if you're still hanging on to it, then that's really good, because I know that the Australian dollar is really showing a lot of strength. So there's a possibility that one could potentially continue to rally down much lower, so you can hang on to that one. So that was a really good trade. And last but not least, you did get the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So you can see that you got a buying opportunity on this one. down within this area right here, stop loss above your point of entry, but at least beneath the buyers who are pushing up, which is good. Hopefully you did do some money management within that area. Seems like a region where we do have some sellers who potentially could give you some issues. But in terms of where you got the buy, in terms of stop loss management, that's really well done. So shout out to Peter and Alvin. You guys did well on the charts yesterday. Remember, guys, if you do get any screenshots, any trades in, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there in the video description. We'd be more than happy to see what you guys are up to. And I mean, we're happy for you. You know, when we see you win, we're not really asking you for any money. So it doesn't really have to send in a screenshot or two. But of course, if we do see something wrong or something you can't change, definitely we'll also throw that in for you to make your trading that much better. So also feel free to reach out to us with the same contact details in case you do have any issues, and we'll see how best we can end up helping you. So shifting gears into matters today. So you can see the watch list right there for the sake of guys who are just coming in. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the USDs. So the US dollar versus all the currency pairs on the buy side, then move on to the euros, do the same. In terms of the fundamentals, yesterday there were quite a lot. I think I forgot to point that out. And I think that's the reason why the markets were all over the place yesterday. But it was also April Fool's Day. So, you know, most of the currency pairs possibly took us for a fool. But let's see how things end up going moving into today. It's not a very busy day in terms of the economic calendar like yesterday, but at least we do have some news events that have already come out. We'll see what ends up happening with that. And a couple of news events during the US session. So you can see that there will be even some 3 stars there. So hopefully we should see some movements on the charts moving into today. So let's see what happens. But in terms of something that, you know, a major news event that should possibly end up rattling the markets around, not really quite there, but at least those news events that are there should get the markets moving. So let's start off with the USDs. We'll start off with the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. So we do have the aggressive down there. We do have the semi-aggressive conservative region somewhere within that area. And we do have the conservative high up within this particular region right here. So we'll be waiting to see what happens. You can see that there's also been some sort of an alert that's been set there by the team. At least when price starts to come back in somewhere within this region, we'll be trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. I mean, the best buys are definitely down within this area here. So you could find the market tapping back in within here. If it does, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some buys. First problem area should be here. If we clear that, for the sake of guys who are good at trading and you're experienced and you know how to scale in, you could potentially look for another trade somewhere within here. But just make sure that your first trade is well secured in terms of risk, so that you don't open up your risk in case the market decides to end up coming down against you. So watch out for that, but definitely you could target all the way high up there. So let's wait and see what happens. In case the market breaks and holds beneath this region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time there will be no trade for us unless the market breaks and holds above that region to the upside. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we'll be trying to see whether we could get some good selling opportunities on this one. So these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. You can see that the market had come up aggressively into this region. The sellers reacted. So the market found some sort of a support region down within here. And you can see that the buyers are coming up. At least it seems like they've started to slow down, which is what we want to see. So we'll be waiting to see if we could potentially get price coming back within this region. And at least if we get the sells here, we could target all the way down here. But just make sure that you really watch out for this region on your way down, because the market could also bounce within here. We're not too sure. Maybe the market could get into some sort of a range. So we just don't know what might happen when the market comes down here. But just make sure that you manage your trade. In case the market breaks and holds beneath this region to the downside, then at that point in time, definitely you could look for another entry, maybe somewhere within here, secure your first trade, maybe cash out a bit on it and see if you could get another trade in and maybe potentially come down with the market down till within somewhere within this region. So watch out for that. But also remember that in case the market breaks and holds above the red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be watching out for selling opportunities. So those are the three areas we will be watching out for. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens. There's definitely a minor SNR somewhere within this region here, because you can't see that the market has also attempted to go higher than this couple of times unsuccessfully. Maybe to some extent, this could be some sort of a probe, but we do have the major SNR somewhere within this region here. So what potentially could end up happening is the market might end up breaking through, because it seems like it's been knocking on that level for quite a bit, and the sellers have not really been coming in quite aggressively, because you can't see that the market came down all the way, but it's come back all the way till within here. So we're just thinking that potentially the market might need a much better price. So we could potentially find the market maybe just coming back in somewhere within this region right here, and hopefully we should get a big reaction of the sellers of this area right here. So we'll be waiting to see whether we could get that happening. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will also be no trade for us. So let's just wait and see. Remember that trading is a game of patience. If you're impatient, then unfortunately, you will be paying the big boys. So just make sure that you watch out for your patience. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So you can't see the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, at around 9:10, price was somewhere within here. So the market had just started coming down. We wanted to see that hold of the market coming back in. You can see that there was some sort of a hold within here. I mean, if you did attempt sells to try and calm down, that was okay. It's just that the market or the price or the buyers somewhere within this particular region were really giving the sellers issues. Like we just couldn't get past this region to the downside after quite a number of attempts. And you can't see that eventually the market did actually break to the upside, and you can't see that it bounced off this region to the upside, and it's continued to move up higher, but also definitely something to do with the AUD pairs. So for this one for today, we're going to be going the other way. Unfortunately, yesterday we're not very successful with the selling opportunities. Hopefully today we'll have a bit more luck with the buys. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So in terms of looking for buys now, don't really chase the buys, because there's some area where we do have sellers high up within here that the market is coming in, unless maybe you got the buys down here. And I mean, the big boys who got the buys down here are possibly looking to cash out within this region. So you don't really want to be jumping in when the big boys are coming out. So unless the market rallies up higher and we get the market potentially breaking above this region, and we visually see that the market has actually broken and is actually holding above that region to the upside, then at that point in time, we could look for the buys. But just give the sellers, within this area, the benefit of doubt, because they could potentially still push the market down to the downside. And what could potentially happen is you could find that maybe during the London session, price could be pulling back, and you could find that maybe at around 4:30, around those times, maybe during the US session, price could be back within here, because you can see that during the Asian session, price has gone up. Maybe the London session might bring the market down, and then maybe during the US session, that's when the market could tend to move to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So let's wait and see what ends up happening, but also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but it's possible price can find its way there. If it does, then at least you should be ready for that as well. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here, and I pointed out it was then a good time to look for the sells. We're just holding within a buyer's region. We were not too sure how the buyers were going to react, but you can see that they did push the market up higher. The sellers couldn't quite come in within this region right here, like would have expected. And you can see that the market has actually continued to rally up higher, even taking out this region right here to the upside. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So the game plan today is to look for buys. The market looks like it's going up, which is okay. Don't really jump in on the buys just yet, because you could find that the market could potentially still come back in within this region right here. And I mean, we could get a proper buy down within this area, because if you hit the buy here, the one thing that you're going to be getting an issue is stop loss, because you'll put your stop loss down here and most probably the market will still come back and stop you out and maybe still bounce off this region to the upside. So let's wait and see if we could get a proper pullback coming in. No matter how high the market goes, it's okay. You shouldn't really be chasing. Always wait for the pullback. So let's wait and see what happens on this one, but also watch out for these two other areas right here. A bit of a long shot, especially this one down within this particular region right here. But in case the market comes back in within that region, at least you still should be aware that we're still watching out to see whether we could get buying opportunities. If the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then at that point in time, we can fall back in terms of looking for the buys. So last but not least, for the USDs, we do have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here within a seller's region. Wasn't a good time to look for the buys, and I pointed that out. It was either the market to break and hold above or maybe pull back in within here. So you can see that there was a real struggle that happened off this area right here, and the buyers and the sellers were really fighting before the market really came down to the downside quite aggressively. Something to do with the Canadian dollar pairs. All of them did make these massive moves at around 430 or thereabout. So you can see that this one came down, the bar within here couldn't do anything, and down back within this region right here, which was the main area that we're watching out for. You can see that the bars have really struggled to push the market to the upside. But for today, on this one, we're not really going to be looking for buys. So we're going to be going the other way. So unfortunately, the buys yesterday, there were no clear opportunities, so we'll be trying to see whether we could get sells today. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So in terms of the sells, don't look for the sells now. Yes, the market has been coming down quite aggressively, but we're within a buyer's region. So we definitely need to wait and first see if we can get a breach to the downside, get a proper hold, within this particular region before we actually jump in on any selling opportunities. So also don't be trigger happy in terms of jumping in on the sells and be some sort of a breakout trader. Immediately the market breaks to the downside, then immediately you jump in on selling opportunities. Always wait and see if you can get that confirmation of the hold. So watch out for that. But you also can find that maybe during the London session, was especially considering the fact that the market is holding within a buyer's region, you could find that maybe there's a possibility during the London session, the London big boys could first push the market to the upside, then maybe during the US session, especially if the market sets itself up properly within that area from around 430 and get a sign of the big sellers showing up, we could potentially get some very good sells happening off this area to come to the downside. So make sure you watch out for that. Be patient. Also watch out for the region at the top. And no matter what you do, also remember to trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters at all times. So that's pretty much it in terms of the USDs. So right now we're going to move on to the Euro currency pairs. We're going to mix and match the Euro with everything on the buy side. So we're going to start off with the Euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So the aggressive area somewhere there, we do have the semi-aggressive conservative region within that particular area, and we do have the conservative down within this area here. So we'll be waiting to see what happens. It's either the market breaks beneath this region to the downside. We don't really want to be hitting selling opportunities when the market is holding above the support region, because the buyers could come in. You can see that they've pushed the market to the upside before. They can't do that again. So we'll give them the benefit of doubt. In case they do end up reacting and we get the market coming back within this area here, then I think we could potentially try and see whether we could get some proper sells high up within here. You can see that there are definitely sellers who are somewhere within these regions who could possibly end up giving us a lending hand, in terms of pushing the market to the downside. So make sure you watch out for that. But remember that in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us unless the market comes back in to the downside of that red scenario. And actually we see, a visual hold that the market is holding to the downside. So the next one, this is the Euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we'll be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities as well. So these are the three areas we've mapped out that we're going to be keeping our eyes locked on. So right now the market is holding within some region where we do have sellers. You can see that there was a push by the sellers, somewhere off that calm down, prices come back in. You can see that somewhere within this region, the market still seems to be reacting. although it seems like true SNR could be somewhere within this area right here. So we're looking at this as some sort of a probe. Yes, the market came back in within a seller's region, but it seems to be holding somewhere within here to the downside. So we'll be waiting to see if we could potentially get the market, because it seems like the sellers within here are really fighting with the buyers, and that's the reason why you're finding this sideways movement. So maybe if the market could just come up, we get a sign of the big sellers showing up, not something like this, but we get like proper big sellers showing up and really undoing what the buyers are attempting to do here, and we get the market holding to the downside. At that point in time, we could try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities to come down with the market all the way down to within here. So watch out for that. But in case the market breaks like it is to the upside and we get the hold within here, then there's a possibility price could rally up a bit higher. And we don't know how high the market could go. I mean, there are quite a number of levels within here that the market, could potentially try to come up to. But one thing we do know is that this is going to be the last area where we should be looking for aggressive sales. In case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So let's wait and see what happens on this one. Also, make sure that you also have a look at correlation, just to see what happens across board. If you see something on 1 euro, try and investigate if it's something on the rest of the euros, or could it be something to do with the opposite currency pair. So just make sure that you also factor that into your trading. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list. I'm going to be trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So this one is almost similar to some extent to the euro against the Swiss franc. You can see that the market is back in within some sort of sellers region. We just need to see what happens. We've not yet seen any sign of the big sellers. Maybe the market might need to end up coming in, maybe try attempt to go a bit higher than these sellers right here. Maybe that's when the sellers will end up really showing up. If the market gets pushed to the downside and the market holds down within this region, I think at that point in time, we could look for the sell, and we could get something similar to what happened yesterday off this area right here, especially if the sellers do show up. Maybe we might breach this region to the downside, but you'll definitely need to do some money management within this particular area right here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the top. In case this price is not good enough, then there's a possibility we could get the price moving up a bit higher, into that aggressive area at the top. So watch out for that as well. So the next one, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the 3 areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. Wanted to see the market come up aggressively off this region right here to the upside and potentially get a hold before we look for the buys. So unfortunately, we couldn't quite get that, because you can see that the market came up but really struggled, because the SNR was somewhere within here. You can see that the market really struggled to hold above this region to the upside. And you can see that the sellers continue to push the market down lower into the US session. Unfortunately, these buyers within here couldn't say anything. And you can see that the market did break to the downside and actually pulled back to the downside of this area before the market continued to rally down lower. So unfortunately for us on that one, there wasn't anything we could have done yesterday, but that's the good thing about having a plan. Personally, I didn't get any trades in yesterday because the markets were just not looking proper, based on the plan. And that's the good thing about following a plan. It saves you from unnecessary losses. So for this one for today, we're going to be going the other way. So we're going to be trying to see whether we could get some sells. So right now we're within a buyer's region. And you can see that the market has just tapped in within this area right here. So we will be waiting to see if we could get either the market breaking to the downside, if we get the market pulling back in within this region right here, and we get a nice slow pullback coming in after a nice strong breach. Potentially we could get some sells in off this area right here. But right now, based on the fact that we're within a buyer's region, we don't know what the buyers could end up doing. And you could find the market pulling back in, maybe all the way till within this area right here. And I hope it does pull back in within this area. But there's also an SNR within this area where you could potentially find that the market might just pull back in within this region, and that price might be good enough. I mean, if we do see something we can read and a proper pullback that we can read, and we see a slowdown of the buyers coming in, the big sellers starting to show up, potentially you could also get some selling opportunities somewhere off this region to come to the downside. So let's watch out and see what happens. But generally, right now where the market is, not a really good area. In fact, if we were to go up to a higher time frame, just to put things into more perspective, you can see that right now where we are, we're down within a buyer's region. Even when you go up to the 4-hour time frame, you can definitely see that buyers are sitting within there. So unless we get a proper breach to the downside, at least if it breaks, holds to the downside, and we can read that on the smaller time frame, then at least we could be targeting down back in within maybe somewhere within this area right here. But generally, caution is advised on that one. So make sure that you watch out for that. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, similar situation to what we've seen on the euro against the Australian dollar. Very good correlation that's happening between the AUDs and the NZDs. You can see that this one is similar. So these are the three areas we had yesterday watching out for buys. We wanted to see price come back in within here, get a sign of the big boys, the big boy buyers rather. And unfortunately, we just couldn't get that. The market broke to the downside, held to the downside, and you can see that the market did continue to push down lower. Price came back in within this region. But unfortunately, it's like the buyers really had nothing to say. And you can see that the market just held within here. And eventually, during the Asian session, it's actually broken to the downside of that particular region. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So this one is similar to what we've discussed on the euro against the Australian dollar. So these are the three areas we'll be watching out for. Right now, in terms of the sells, not really a good idea. Let the market break beneath this region to the downside. On the pullback, if the market gives us a proper pullback, we can read back within this area. At least this trade is going to be much better compared to this one. This one is a risky one. This one is much better after you get the pullback and the confirmation. So watch out for that. But like we discussed on the previous currency pair, also for this one, since we're within some sort of buyer's region, the buyers could react. In fact, if I also do go up on a higher time frame on this one, you will see it's similar to some extent to the euro against the Australian dollar. So we're back in within a buyer's region. You can see the buyers pushed up off there. They've done that before. They can't do that again. So we'll just simply have to wait and see if we can first get a breach of this region to the downside before we jump in on any selling opportunities. So make sure that you watch out for that. Watch out for the red SNR at the top as well. In case the market finds its way there, then at least you should also be watching out for sells. But in case it breaks and holds above that, then unfortunately, you'll have to fall back on your selling opportunities. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. We expected the pullback at least to come in. The pullback came in, and you can see that from around 3 moving into 4:30, that's when the buyers showed up. And you can see that this one gave only one buy coming up. And the market just came shy of this area, tapped somewhere within this particular region. And then after that, you can see that the sellers really came in quite aggressively. But I mean, it's something that has to do with the rest of the Canadian dollar pairs as well. Looking at all of them, there were these massive moves that happened at around 5:30 or thereabouut. So you can see that the market came down, broke this region to the downside, and also this one. And once that happened, unfortunately, there was no trade for us. But generally, at least one good buy coming in there. Fortunately, I also missed out on that one. The move was also a bit too quick. But ideally, like I pointed out, it's best to always follow your plan. So without forcing any trades, it also ends up saving you from a lot of unnecessary losses on the charts. So for this one, moving into today, we're going to be trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for. Right now, where the price is not a really good idea in terms of looking for the sells. So unless the market breaks this region to the downside, we get the pullback coming in within this area here, then at least we could look for the sells within there. But right now, considering the fact that price is holding above a buyer's region, the London big boys might potentially push the market up. And, we could be on the pullback phase. Then during the US session, if price sets itself up properly from around 4:30, we potentially could get a very, very good selling opportunity off this region to come down. So we just need to be patient. Let's wait and see what happens, but also watch out for the region at the top. It's a key area, especially when you're looking at this on the bigger time frame. Somewhere within this region here, especially for the guys in the sniper program, guys who've done the one-on-one, you will see why this is an area of interest. The market went up, came down. There's a region somewhere within here where we're thinking that if the market does end up going a bit higher, then this region might just generally come back squarely back within this region, and maybe some proper sales might also happen off that region there. But generally, the area that you should be watching out for right now is generally this area. This is generally the next SNR to the upside and where the sellers are currently sitting based on where price is. So watch out for that, and also watch out for the region at the top. If the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, unfortunately, there will be no trade for us unless the market comes back to the downside. So hopefully you've taken note of all the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched up the USD and the euro versus everything on the buy side. So right now we're going to be moving on to the indices, and we're going to be starting off with the NAS 100. So moving on into the indices, we'll start off with this one. So for the NAS 100 yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here, pointed out that let's see, we could get the market pulling back in somewhere as close as possible within here for us to look for the sells. So you can see that the market just came up and just came tapped in within some sort of a minor SNR within here. The market reacted, came down. There was a buyer's region within this area here. And you can see that those buyers really pushed the market to the upside quite aggressively. The market's still holding within this particular region here. Let's wait and see if we could get potentially the sellers, or rather the buyers, slowing down, because you can see that the sellers showed up, but the buyers still haven't slowed down. And you can see that that started off with this push going to the upside. So what we'll be waiting for on this one is if we can get the market coming back to the downside of this area right here, and we potentially end up getting the market holding within here, we could attempt some sells to come down till within this region here, but just generally also watch out for these minor SNRs within these areas. These are regions that could potentially give you issues. They've done that before, so they can end up giving you issues again in the future. So don't overlook those levels. But generally, if we do get a sign of the big sellers showing up and the buyers slow down, I think we could potentially end up getting a very, very good selling opportunity on this one. So watch out for that. But also remember that for as long as we're holding beneath this red SNR to the downside, the bar still remains that we should be looking for selling opportunities. If you do get some buys, you could take them. But just make sure that you also watch out for your risk because the buys are counters, considering the fact that the sellers are still in control. They can come in without any warning at any given point in time, and you don't really want to end up getting caught wrong-footed. So just make sure that you also watch out for your risk if you're going to be taking counters. So moving on into the next one, which is the US 30. So for this one, yesterday and today, we're going to be watching out to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. For as long as we're holding beneath this red SNR, the bias has been to look for sells. You can see that the market has been on the pullback phase. This started off on Monday. So Friday, the market tanked down aggressively. On Monday, the markets were on the pullback. Yesterday, the markets were in some sort of a neutral gear. The big boys were not really anywhere. So you can see that the market, all we're expecting was to get the price breaking to the downside of this area, then after that on the pullback, potentially get a sell to come down. And you can see that the market did come down. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get all the way down to within here. But I had pointed out that there were some buyers who are sitting somewhere within this area. And that's the reason when I drew this, I pointed out that we needed to see the reaction we're going to get off this buyer somewhere within here. And you can see that the buyers really reacted to the upside quite aggressively. And you can see that they pushed the market up, and to some extent, it seems like the market is holding to the upside of this area right here. So for this one, moving into today, the areas are the same. So we've not adjusted anything, considering the fact that the story of price is still the same. Price is still holding within the same levels. So we'll either be waiting for price to either rally up to the upside. Maybe the sellers, for them to come in, might need some better prices, which means they will potentially have to invite more buyers to come in before they actually end up making a move. And also remember that the big sellers are actually sitting somewhere within there. So maybe the big boys are just sitting there. They're just waiting for price to come back in within this area. And maybe that's when they'll end up unleashing hell on the buyers. But we'll have to wait and see. Alternatively, what we do know is that there's a crazy fight that's going on within this region here. So in case the market comes to the downside, we get these buyers somewhere within here not reacting, and the market actually holds to the downside of this area. Then at that point in time, we could potentially also try and see whether we could get some semi-aggressive conservative selling opportunities to come down. But generally, also make sure that you watch out for this region here. It's proving to be a bit of a challenge to break to the downside. So on your way down, just make sure that you really watch out for that region as you're coming down. So make sure that you take note of that. So hopefully that is clear. So moving on into the next one, which is silver and gold, which we are both looking for buys. Unfortunately, some data was lost on TradingView, but generally we're going to be watching out for buys. I know the buys yesterday on this one did not really work. I think we're watching out for buys of somewhere within here. The market really struggled. So you can't see that it came to the downside, broke this region to the downside. It seemed like it was holding, but right now it's come back to the upside of this area. So for this one, going up a higher time frame, what you will end up realizing is that we have a main set of big buyers who are sitting somewhere within here. So the market went up. This was on Thursday last week, and it's been on the pullback the last more or less 3 days. So Friday, Monday, and also yesterday we were on the pullback. Market came back in, seems to have done some sort of probe within this particular region here. So hopefully we're expecting maybe we should get the market potentially lifting off this region right here to the upside. So let's wait and see if we could get that happening. And at least it's a good thing price is actually holding above this region. So let's see if the London big boys could potentially push the market to the upside for us, but also watch out for these two other regions right here. In case the market starts to move to the upside, then at least you should also be getting ready in terms of doing your money management, within this particular region right here, even if you will be targeting all the way higher up within this particular region right here. But also watch out for these minor SNRs within here. Can't see a bunch of sellers have also come in within these areas here. So in case the market starts to give you issues within these areas, just make sure that you also manage. You shouldn't just sit there and just wait for price to actually go against you if you actually see that the market is giving you issues on its way up. So make sure that you're also on top of things in terms of your money management. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, also for this one, we lost some data, but I know that generally we're watching out for buys. Yesterday morning price was somewhere here. And I pointed out that we're not really going to move the levels just yet. Yesterday morning, I think price was somewhere, the level was somewhere up here, the conservative region. But I pointed out that we'll have to wait and see what happens on the pullback. Because gold is making new highs more or less every week or every day. So it had just gone up higher. The pullback came in. Remember, I pointed out that there was this aggression of the sellers that did start to show, and we're expecting maybe the pullback to come in. And you can see that the market did actually pull back in. So the buyers really struggled within this region. The market came down, but I think the level that we had was somewhat down within this particular region. And you can see that the market actually bounced off this area to the upside, but the sellers are still quite adamant. So for this one for today, the levels are going to be looking like this. So for as long as we're holding above this region to the upside, the bias is to look for buying opportunities. So hopefully we'll get those sellers slowing down within this particular region right here, because you can't see that they've come in aggressively. This could be the pullback and the retest within there. So there's a possibility you could find that the price might potentially come back in within this area. And if it does, and everything sets itself up properly, especially if we see signs of weakness on the side of the buyer, then maybe we could potentially get some very good buys coming up. Watch out for this region right here. Definitely also for this region. This level high up here, it's a bit of a long shot, but if the market gets all the way back there, at least we know this is the highest price. You know that gold has been recently. So, on your way up, also, you could also watch out for that particular region there, but there are definitely quite a number of SNRs that you have to watch out for on your way up. So that could be one scenario. The other scenario could be, if the pullback doesn't come in, because it doesn't have to, we'll generally have to wait and see if we could get the market breaking above this region to the upside. If that happens and the market holds above this region to the upside, then at least after the hold, watching out for the times, you could potentially also end up getting a very good buy of this region to the upside. But make sure that you also do watch out for your risk. In terms of counters, if you're going to be looking for sells, the sells are counters, but at least if the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, then at least at that point in time, you could look for your selling opportunities much more confidently. But gold has really been moving up for the last couple of months. It's actually been moving up, and the buyers are still piling pressure on the sellers. Right now, this could be a pullback, maybe to rattle. Guys, stop out quite a number of late buyers who are also jumping in on buys, getting caught up in such kind of things. But generally, the bias still remains to be to the upside. So make sure that you do watch out for your risk. Like we keep on pointing out, trading is no joke. You could start off the week very well. Like on a Monday, you start off with $100. trade by Wednesday, maybe you're up 500, things are going well. Thursday, you could be at 1,000. Then on Friday, you end up fumbling the ball and you end up going back all the way to $20. And that's the nature of trading. So that's the reason why you need to make sure that you're on top of things. Could end up taking a long trip only to end up back at square one. So just make sure that you always really, really watch out for your risk. So looking at the chat box real quick as we wrap things up. So I'm seeing Lyle, always good to see you here. So you're saying expect a bloodbath on the indices on USD front. Tariffs start to take effect today, plus a speech from Trump, though expecting that the tariffs will be more lenient, implying a bullish sentiment. And you're also saying that the indices, the high chances of the sellers being wiped out as the market is in a short squeeze. If the tariffs happen to be strict, then sales will play out. Till then, I'm bullish. That's pretty okay. That's fine. Because, at the end of the day, the fundamentals, the speeches, and everything that ends up happening, you see, that's only one part of trading. And also depends on what game plan you're going to be applying in terms of the trades that you're going to be watching out for. So for us, to be honest, we're always very fluid. We don't really end up having a particular sentiment that the market has to do this or that. As we're very fluid, what we know is for as long as the market is holding beneath the red SNR, we're going to be looking for selling opportunities primarily. If the market breaks to the upside of this region, then we'll look for buys more confidently. Let me put it that way, more confidently. So it doesn't mean that we can't actually look for buys. We still can look for buys, and I can see what you're seeing. The market seems to be getting into some sort of a channel going up, which is okay. And you can see that the market is making higher highs and higher lows, which is perfectly fine. So, if you're going to be following that, of course, backed by the speeches and the tariffs and everything, it's perfectly fine. Because if you're going to be looking for buys and the market is going up, at the end of the day, it's risk, like I pointed out. So as long as you understand exactly what you're going to be going for and everything applies to your game plan, then that should be perfectly fine. So we'll have to wait and see. If you're going to be looking for buys, well and good. For us, the buys for us are counters for as long as we're holding beneath the red SNR. But the beauty about trading is that, you can look for buys, we can look for sells, both of us can make money and still a good day. And I guess that's the beauty of trading. But it's always good to see you here, Lyle. And thank you so much for your 2 cents and also for the heads up, on the indices, the tariffs and everything. They're always good to see you here. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. Not really seeing anything much else on the chat box. Want to thank you guys so much for making the time to be here with us. For the sake of guys who are late, this is what our watch list is going to be looking like. Also, remember, if anything wasn't too clear, also feel free to peruse through the YouTube recording. At least we give you that provision. Also, feel free to give us a like and a subscribe if this information does end up helping you. And I mean, you can also share it out there with other traders, even as we continue journeying in this journey together. So feel free to do that as well. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you do have a wonderful trading day, and also in everything else that you end up doing, hope you end up having a blessed day. So we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So with that, happy trading and bye for now. May the peeps be with you. God bless.